Welcome to Talking Straight. I'm Suresh Kochattil. At one time, the Indian rupee had a strong halo around it. So much so that the Gulf rupee was the official currency used by the British protectorates of the Arabian Peninsula. Earlier in the 1960s, the rupee was accepted in Gulf countries such as Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and even Oman. That meant, in effect, the Indian rupee was a common currency for those territories as well as for India. India also had payment agreements with the Eastern European, and the rupee was used as a unit of account under these payment agreements. However, in the mid-1960s, these arrangements were terminated. Now, news is coming in that the Central Bank of Sri Lanka is awaiting the Reserve Bank of India's approval to designate the Indian rupee as a foreign currency in Sri Lanka. Banks from India's neighboring island nation have opened special rupee trading account called Vostro accounts. Sri Lanka has requested the RBI to facilitate and promote trade and tourism in the SAARC region. The dollar-strapped Sri Lanka and sanctions-hit Russia will be the first countries to use the Indian rupee trade settlement mechanism, a game-changing initiative that allows using Indian rupees instead of dollars and other major currencies for international transactions. India's central bank, the RBI, has approved banks to open special rupee trading accounts, as I said before, called Vostro accounts, for trade with Sri Lanka through the Indian rupee trade settlement mechanism. So what does it really mean? It means that Sri Lankan citizens can now hold up to $10,000, which is around approximately 8,26,823 rupees in physical form. This also means that Sri Lankans and Indians can use Indian rupees instead of US dollars for international transactions with each other. The Indian government since July this year has been looking to bring countries that are short of dollars into the rupee settlement mechanism. Designating rupee as a legal currency in Sri Lanka will provide the country with a much needed liquidity support to help tide over its present economic crisis amid inadequate availability of dollars. The country's economy is more likely to prevent further intensification of the balance of payments crisis when the investors begin off selling the domestic currency. India's finance ministry has also asked the Indian Banks Association and the FIEO to begin an awareness campaign to sensitize stakeholders about the rupee trade. Special rupee accounts for international transaction between designated countries are called Vostro accounts. So why is Sri Lanka so keen to trade in rupees? That's Indian rupees. That is because designating the Indian rupee as a legal currency in Sri Lanka will provide, as I said before, the much needed liquidity support, because it's right now it is in a dire straits. Sri Lanka just doesn't have the money, especially the dollars. With foreign currency, Sri Lankan economy is more likely to prevent further balance of payment crisis, because that is when the actual problem starts, when the country has to pay for fuel and other arrangements. India's efforts for rupees internalization, what is the reason for it? Why is India trying to internationalize the rupee? So far, the India's central bank has given approval to banks to open 12 Vostro accounts for trading in rupees with Russia. 6 other accounts, including 5 for trade with Sri Lanka and 1 for trade with Mauritius, has also been authorized. A Reserve Bank of India document cited by some of the newspapers around show that the countries such as Tajikistan, Cuba, Luxembourg, and Sudan to have reportedly in talks about using the rupee settlement mechanism. India's finance ministry has asked the Indian Banks Association and the Federation of Indian Export Organization, as I said before, FIEO, to begin the awareness campaign so that the entire trade and the industry is aware about these facilities. The Reserve Bank, as I said before, in July had notified the new mechanism for settling the international trade on rupee. This was aimed not just at reducing the rupee against the dollar, but also internationalizing the Indian currency. The government of India is looking to bring more countries that are short of dollars into this mechanism. Similarly, as I told you before, many banks have been given Vostro account options to trade with Russia and other countries. These are all countries which are now strapped because of the crisis in Ukraine. This mechanism, of course, was set up in July. Exporters and importers have begun approaching the banks for opening up these accounts. So trade settlement with Russia, for example, under the new payment system is expected to commence soon for some shipments. The move assumes significance among the widening trade gap between India and Russia. While Russia has swiftly become India's top oil export supplier, Indian exports to the sanctions-hit country are declining as the exporters are wary of Western sanctions and the lack of a smooth payment mechanism. India's rupee trade settlement mechanism is also attracting interest from other countries, as I said before, like Tajikistan, Cuba, Luxembourg and Sudan. The RBI has prepared a concept paper for trade settlement in the Indian rupees with the country's third largest trading partner, the United Arab Emirates. The Central Bank of United Arab Emirates is looking at the matter and discussing it with the RBI officials to operationalize the mechanism. It is said that the RBI's concept paper has been shared with the UAE administration, which has already designated a senior nodal person to work on this further. Central banks of India and United Arab Emirates are in talks with each other to operationalize trading in local currencies and also to look at reducing the cost of the transaction. The Reserve Bank of India has detailed a broad framework for cross-border trade transactions in rupees under the Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999. As per this, all exports and imports under this agreement may be demonetized, that is, denominated and invoiced in rupees. I repeat, may be denominated and invoiced in rupees. Exchange rates between the currencies of the two trading partner countries may be market determined. That is the natural way to go about it. The settlement of trade transaction under this arrangement must take place in rupees. Indian importers undertaking imports through this mechanism need to make the payment in rupees, which must be credited into the escrow account of the corresponding bank of the partner country against the invoices for the supply of goods or services from the overseas seller or supplier. Similarly, Indian exporters undertaking exports of goods and services through this mechanism must be paid in the export proceeds in rupees and the balance in a designated escrow account of the corresponding bank of the partner country. The rupee can be transformed into international currency by making it a stable currency and to enable international trade and keeping it as an asset. A currency is generally termed as international if it's widely accepted across the world as a medium of exchange for trade. Currency experts said that the rupee is becoming an international currency would likely to reduce India's trade deficit. The rupee will be strengthened in the global market, and other countries may start adopting the rupee as their trade currency. So, going forward, the question is, will the Indian rupee get more acceptance from the countries that are looking to work outside the traditional dollar denomination? Along with the homegrown UPI, which has changed the face of payments in India, the Indian rupee may go places. Thank you for watching. Jai Hind.
Please subscribe to Nationalist Hub English channel for more interesting videos, and don't forget to like and share this video. Nationalist Hub, it's a news revolution.